Go ahead and get started. I'll call to order the Redevelopment Commission on this, the 14th day of April of 2020. As Mr. Campbell noted the other night for our council meeting, this is our first all electronic RDC meeting. So welcome everybody. Could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Campbell?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Present.
Mr. Hopper?
Here.
Mr. Hoover?
Here.
Mr. Moan?
We are missing one.
Maybe he'll get logged on in a minute. We'll watch for him. And non-voting advisor, Mr. Alexander?
Here.
Okay, we'll show that Mr. Moan is absent, but we'll watch for him to log on.
All right, thank you. We do have a quorum, so we can get started. Is there a motion to approve our minutes from our March 10th meeting?
So moved.
I heard a motion by Mr. Campbell on the second.
Okay.
Harris is who I was going with. Sorry.
That's all right. I was going the other way. We'll go Campbell Harris. That works.
Any discussion on the minutes? All right. Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? All right. Seeing none, the minutes are approved unanimously. New business, resolution 2020-04, approving an application for property tax deductions for certain real property located within the East Side Economic Development area, the Shear Group. Mr. Sherman, this is yours, right, sir?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
All right, you have the floor.
Thank you. You have in your file the Shear Group South Point Business Center. This is Building C. It's the southernmost building of the three that the Shear Group has developed out there at South Point Business Center. In your packet, you will see that this is an investment in a 358,000 square foot speculative building, 26 acres at South Point, and it's located on Main Street, just west of Graham Road. The investment in the building is about $12 million. Land is probably 1.675. It is a speculative building. We are requesting a 10-year declining 10% per year abatement. Building. This construction is a little bit unusual. If you look at your Exhibit A for the building, this is one of the few in this area where there is a road to the west of this extension of Cheney Avenue, and then that goes around to the south. So this is an expensive part of this building, is the construction of that roadway. So you can see that it goes to the west of the building and then turns east, goes on the south side of the building, and then eventually that will hook back into Main Street. So that is one of the reasons that this was the last of these properties to be built, because of the expense of that road. On the SB1, for Stephen's benefit, we will indicate that we will start this building September of 2020, and being no more controversy or whatever, that will be completed by 2021. So Stephen, we would make that that will be a commitment of the SB1. So you can see that we have $19.50 per hour as our projected salaries, and at least 33 employees. This is a speculative building. As you can see, that this is the third in this building, and the others are there, and they're already completed. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
Pat, this is Kevin Hoover. I didn't quite understand when your committed completion date was. Was it the end of 2021?
2021.
Thank you.
I lost that too. There was a little interference. Was that September or the end of December?
September 2021.
All right, which is the same as listed in your SB1, right?
Yes, those are the commitments that the
Thank you.
your group is going to make on that.
Any other questions from anybody? All right, seeing none, what's the will of the commission? Is there a motion to approve resolution 2020-04?
I'll make that motion. This is Hoover.
Motion by Mr. Hoover. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Campbell. Any discussion, further discussion from anyone? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. All right. Resolution 2020-04 is adopted unanimously. I'll check in and see if Mr. Moan is with us yet. Not yet.
Amanda, from a procedural standpoint, and I haven't double checked this, in some circumstances, when you're doing electronic meetings, you're required to have a roll call vote. I didn't know if that applied on a video situation. Has that question been discussed before in your office?
Not that I'm aware of, no. At the previous meeting that I sat at, Board of Works, it was done exactly as this one's being done as and it's your, I mean, if you'd like me to do a roll call, I can.
That make you feel better, Stephen?
That would. I don't expect a whole lot of controversy, but I do remember reading something either from the public access counselor or possibly in the executive order of the governor. And it just would be probably a better process. And since we have a small board here, I'd say go ahead and do that just for.
You want to go all the way back to the minutes, or do you want to start with just these resolutions?
I'm not terribly concerned about the minutes.
Okay. All right. Let's have a roll call then on when we do these votes moving forward.
Thank you.
Yep.
As always, Mr. Campbell and Mr. Hopper, will you sponsor this to the council level, the tax abatement?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Do you want me to do roll call on the
Yeah,
tax
let's do it.
abatement?
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll
all
start
right.
with this one. We'll do the vote over again and a roll call this time.
Okay, roll call on the tax abatement. Campbell,
Aye.
Hoover,
Aye.
Hopper,
Aye.
Harris.
Aye.
There's too many H's. And Mr. Moan, are you there? Did you hear any of it? I don't think he's here yet.
I didn't see him.
So that'll be 4.
Thank you.
All right. Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate being part of your first electronic meeting. So,
Yeah. Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, Pat.
All right, resolution number 2020-05, City of Greenwood, Indiana Redevelopment District Tax Increment Revenue Bonds of 2020, Series A. This will be for the Fry Road project.
It should be Zach Klutz from Taft and
Okay.
Jennifer Hudson from LWG are online.
All right, well,
This is Greg
the
Wright.
floor
I'll
is
speak
theirs.
to it. I'll speak to it. This is Greg. This
Greg.
bond we're looking at for the Fry Road TIF district. As you're aware, probably it will be expiring in 2029. It is our second oldest TIF district. So this would be kind of similar to what we did last year with the east side, where we did the final bond to max out what could come out of that. And what we're looking to fund here would be to finish the Madison Avenue project going north, and then also to fund the trail from the northwest annex to Northwest Park.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Looks like this bond's 3.6 million. Is that what I'm reading? Is that correct? Or is that? Yes. All right. Does anybody have any questions?
Just for clarity, Amanda, I just pulled off SharePoint the resolution, and we're talking about 2020-05, and see in the table of contents, section 11, there's an automatic cross-reference error, and it makes me wonder if this is the latest version. So I want to make sure that what we are adopting is in fact the latest version. And,
what is?
Hey, Zach, you're on mute.
Oh, I see what you're saying, where it says error bookmark not found.
and I think in one of the early drafts, he had that.
Yeah, this is Zach Klutz with Taft, serving as bond counsel. That reference is showing up strictly when the document is printed or saved into a new format, but this is the latest version with all comments received from all the parties.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Zach.
I'll make sure that error is corrected when I'll have to reprint the second page because I already have it printed, but
Yep.
I did not see that. I will make sure that it is corrected.
It is on here. I see it. All right. Any further discussion? Well, I suppose that was the further discussion. Is there a motion from the commission to approve?
A motion.
Is that
Brian, a
you?
motion.
Mr. Harris, thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yep.
Mr. Campbell?
Who was that made the second?
I think it was Mr. Campbell.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Was it not you, Mike?
No, I don't know who said that.
And that does remind me of another
now.
recommendation, which is if you're making the motion or the second, state your name first, and then that you're making the motion or making the second. That will help everyone, in particular Amanda, out.
Yes, thank you. All right, ready for roll call?
We are ready for roll call. Yep.
Mr. Harris,
Yay, yes.
Hopper,
Aye.
Hoover,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Moan, join, yes, no? Okay. That will be 4 ayes, 4-0.
Resolution 2020-05 is approved. Next up is Resolution 2020-06, City of Greenwood, Indiana Redevelopment District Tax Increment Revenue Bonds of 2020 Series B, the WORTHSVILLE Road Project.
Yeah, so this would be the first set of bonds on the simple tip to fund WORTHSVILLE Road Section 2. We do have a commitment to NDOT that we will have to pay, I believe it's beginning of December of this year, in order for construction to start next year on time. So this was the funding mechanism that we thought would fit best with everything that the city has available funding-wise.
And this is for $6,905,000.
Correct.
This one has that same bookmark error, just so everybody knows.
And I will make the correction.
Yep. Any further discussion from the commission? All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
This is Hoover. I'll move for approval of resolution 2020-06.
Thank you, Mr. Hoover. Is there a second?
Campbell seconds.
Thanks, Mike. All right, roll call.
Mr. Hopper,
Aye.
Mr. Hoover,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Harris, Mr. Harris.
Oops, sorry, I had you on mute. Aye.
All right, that's 4-0.
Thank you.
And Mr. Campbell and Mr. Hopper, we will have resolutions going to the council on this as well. Can we mark you as sponsors for the agenda?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, next up, consideration of engagement with Taft Law and addendum for 2 bond actions, Fry Road and the 2020 Central.
This is just the bond counsel services for the 2 bonds we just that you all just approved.
All right. Let me see. I'm assuming there was a not to exceed amount somewhere on here.
Flat fee of 40,000.
That's correct.
Is that for each of them?
Okay. Any other questions? Mike, do you have something?
I have a motion to approve this.
Oh, thank you, sir. Motion by Mr. Campbell. Is there a second?
Hoover will second.
Thank you, Mr. Hoover. Unless there's further discussion, I think we are ready for a roll call.
Mr. Hoover,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Hopper.
Aye.
That is 4-0. Aye.
Mr. Harris, just for housekeeping, I have all these documents. I'm signing them, and I'll drop them off tomorrow at the city building for you to get your signature on them. I think they keep them just at the front desk there with security. So,
And I'll have to work out with Mr. Hoover. You will need to come in and sign the docket, but that's all.
it'll probably be in the same spot with the rest of it. All right, old business. Consideration of replacement engagement letter and addendum with LWG Financial Advisors for the 2020 Central TIF.
So at the last meeting, we did one of these, but it had the wrong TIF listed on it. It said Southwest, so we had to bring this one up to get Central TIF put on it. It's for the bond we just discussed.
Okay. Any questions from anybody?
Is there a not to exceed amount?
There is. Let me see here.
25,000?
Yes.
Again, it looks like it's a flat fee.
Yep.
Yeah, flat fee.
That is it. All right. Is there a motion?
This is Hoover,
Harris
so moved.
motion.
All right, I got Mr. Hoover first, then we'll go Mr. Harris. First and a second. We need buttons that have different sounds. So you hit the button, and then we know when your sound who got there first.
Jeopardy.
Yeah.
I'll go ding, ding, ding.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Hopper,
Aye.
Mr. Hoover.
Aye.
That's 4-0-4.
Next up, capital project reports. County Line Road I-65 Development Project, consideration of a third amendment to the PSA with Strand Associates for Ulta survey.
Yes, this is Kevin Steinmetz. Yeah, it was a small amendment to, I believe, $3,800 to do a survey. As you know, that there was the parcel we own, there's a parcel that Cummins owns, and another parcel that we're obligated to purchase here in a couple months. As all the attorneys in the room know, this creates the Alta survey for that one that we're going to purchase, which is a common thing that everyone wants before you purchase a piece of property, is a up-to-date and valid survey. So that's what it is. This is for that 10 acres.
All right. 3,800. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions from anybody? All right. Is there a motion?
Campbell so moves.
Mr. Campbell, thank you, sir. Second.
Hoover will second.
Thank you, Mr. Hoover. All right. Roll call, please.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Hopper,
Aye.
Mr. Hoover,
Here. Aye.
Mr. Campbell.
Aye.
Here too.
Still here.
Is 4-0 for it.
All right. Next up, was this all the Kevin Steinmetz show right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Next up, 523 South Madison Avenue project.
This is a design for $49,800 from Brown and Gay, who's designing the field house that's being paid for by Parks Department money. for the southern access into that. We've tentatively named it Church Street because it just kind of goes from OLG over to what's the Vineyard campus. But it also includes bringing in the utilities into that middle of the site because they kind of loop on the outside because there was a giant school there. We didn't want to okay this until we had a bond done for the field house and plans almost done. But you can think of this as a road running from about the OLG sanctuary to the Vineyard, as well as utilities along that to kind of feed that 19 acres. So the design was $49,800, and it can be payable from really east or central or even the field house bond proceeds, whatever Adam and the controller Greg Wright view fit, but it's eligible under all those.
Our preference would be the central TIF.
Yes, sir.
And Amanda, looks like if I've got the most current version of this, it's set up for my signature as president.
That's been corrected. I noticed that late when I was printing everything. Everything that had a signature mistake has been corrected.
Great, thank you.
There's another one coming up that's an error as well.
If it says Kevin Hoover, I'll just sign it anyway for you, Kevin.
What the heck?
Fine.
It's like my wife.
All right. Any further questions? All right. Is there a motion?
With that correction, Hoover will move for approval of this PSA.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Harris. All right. Roll call, please.
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Hopper?
Aye.
Mr. Hoover?
Aye.
That's 404.
All right. Thank you. Old City Park project.
Yeah, so this is a change order, as you can see from the document. Even with this, we're from a percentage-wise, really thankfully low for a project in Old Town of this scale. This one included some lighting in the pavilion that we kept from the Parks Department. It included the signage that told everyone what was happening there. It included a new electric service because the other one was old, not surprisingly. We consolidated a bunch of irrigation things, which actually will save us money in the long term because we're talking 1 meter instead of 2. And we had a little credit there for using less linear feet of curb. So just things that kind of quantity changes that happen. And as I said, really happy to only be about $140,000 in change orders on a $5 million project with as old, at this point, with as old as that area is. So still within the budget appropriation that we have, so just be approving to that change order that will amend the contract.
Kevin, this is Hoover. What's PIP surfacing?
Oh, so that is poured in place surfacing for the playground equipment up there. It's like the safety thing. We switched specifications on it because we were using kind of one that was the old standard, and we moved to one that has a new material that's supposed to last longer, so that has better reviews from places who used it. So we upgraded it a little bit, just supposed to have a better warranty and stuff.
Thank you. I just didn't recognize the acronym.
Yeah, it looks weird, but it's poured in place safety surfacing for the playground areas.
Any further questions? All right. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve change order number 6?
Campbell so moves.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Roll call, please.
Sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze. Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Hopper?
Bless you.
Aye.
Mr. Hoover?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
4-0 to pass.
All right, you're still up, Kevin. Consideration of substantial completion on the Main Street parking lot.
Yes, this parking lot is open for parking. Not that much other things are open around it right now, but as soon as we get back to church and dinners and things, it is open. It still needs some light heads and some landscaping, but hardscape substantially complete. This allows the contractor to kind of release that portion of their construction bond. So if you do want to park there and take a walk around Old Town, it is open. Still needs some of the decorative touches, but they're on their way. So.
Do they have an idea when they'll finish those other pieces?
Unfortunately, we got the light poles, but the light heads are at a factory in Michigan that is under a stay-at-home order, and they've decided not to open back up. So some of the landscaping happened, but I don't think there's anyone who can tell you anywhere where necessarily anything quite is in the supply chain. So we'll just play it by ear. But so lighting might be a little bit, but it appears that landscape is still coming in. So it's just factory by factory basis, I think, right now.
All right. Is there a motion?
Campbell moves.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Hoover will second.
Thank you, Mr. Hoover. Any other discussion? Questions for Kevin? Seeing none, roll call, or hearing none, I should say.
Mr. Hopper?
Aye.
Mr. Hoover?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
And the record show 4-0 to pass.
Thank you. 940 Fry Road.
This is a cleanup. We got the larger money approved for the demolition. We forgot to get this money approved for the asbestos of what was Pool City. And so as we were looking here at cleaning some stuff up, this would be a ratification of that. They had to go do a check to make sure there's no asbestos in that building. But that project, what percentage our contribution was, which was just the demolition of Pool City. Wow, that area on Fry Road looks a lot better thanks to Todd Anthony and his stuff.
Yeah, it does. Yep. And this is for 2,517. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Asbestos inspection.
Can that be paid from the Fry Road TIF fund?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Hoover will so move.
Let's start over. I heard something before I started to hear Harris. So whoever went first, who was that?
It might have been Hoover. I
All
think
right,
it was.
Mr. Hoover. Thank you. We'll go Mr. Hoover first and Mr. Harris on the second. All right. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hopper?
Aye.
Mr. Hoover?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
4-0 to pass.
All right. Thank you. Department reports. Mr. Hodson. I saw that he's on here.
He was muted, but I unmuted him. So
Sam, are you there? All right, we're going to skip Sam. Maybe come back. Sam, jump in if you actually have anything to say. Mr. Watson.
Nothing today.
Nothing today. Mr. Wright.
I do have one item for you. As we've done in other boards, as far as the docket goes, would like to have the board give permission to Mr. Hopper's president to approve release of the checks and then everything to get signed after the fact based on not being able to get everybody in person to sign at the meetings. And then we would just go back to normal after we get back to regular in-person meetings.
Okay.
That's a procedure we did in the Board of Works. It seems to work out fine. So I would move we approve that procedure for the RDC. This is Hoover.
Thanks, Mr. Hoover. Is there a second?
Campbell seconds.
Thank you, sir. All right. Any discussion from anybody? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Hoover,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Hopper.
Aye. All right, motion
Thank you.
approved. Yeah, you're welcome. Mr. Johnston.
All right, good afternoon. I've got a couple items. There we go. So on screen, you can see the PDF slides that I had. The first one that I had there, this is for WORTHSVILLE Road, Section 2, Parcel 13. The RDC had approved the original offer for the Clark Pleasant School District. You can see on the image there the portion that's going to be acquired. It's a real small amount, just a little over $2,000. We did get a request back where the owners requested an additional $2,500. This was for some legal fees so that they could get a partial release of the bond indenture. I did send an email to the RDC president and secretary just so we could, to get their approval to keep the process moving along to acquire this. The motion that I'm requesting today is that you ratify the approval of this funding for an additional $2,500 for parcel 13 for WORTHSVILLE Road Section 2 project.
All right. Is there a motion? All right. Seeing none, I will make the motion to keep us moving.
Hoover will second it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hoover. All right. Any discussion from anybody?
Just a quick question. On your slide, does that mean we originally approved $2,075 and now we're approving an additional $2,500?
That's correct.
So it more than doubled.
That's correct.
Okay.
I would note that if it were to have to go to condemnation, don't know if that would have had to have happened, but you would, at minimum, even if the law department handled all the legal work, you would have appraisal costs in the condemnation case itself that would well exceed the $2,500.
These aren't cheap. All right. Any further discussion? All right. Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Hopper,
Aye.
Mr. Hoover.
Aye.
Passes 4-0.
All right.
Thank you. Chrissy, next slide, please. All right, so the next item that I have, this is a consideration of commitment of local funds for the same project, WORTHSVILLE Road, Section 2. So the letting for the projects is scheduled for November of 2020. You may recall, some of you that have been on the board for a while, that about 4 to 5 months in advance of the letting, NDOT does want to have the local share, local funds committed. This is for construction. So the RDC is the fiscal body for that commitment. Next slide, please. So just a quick reminder of what that project is. There on the image on the right. Hopefully it shows up pretty well for you, but that shows the limits from for WORTHSVILLE Road Section 2 on the east end. That's at the intersection of Averett and WORTHSVILLE Road. The roundabout is actually part of WORTHSVILLE Road Section 3, not part of Section 2. So just keep that in mind. But it does have the giant sweeping S curves. it matches in with Stones Crossing Road at the offset intersection, the existing offset intersection at Honey Creek. That will become a new roundabout there. So
Does section 2 include the roundabout at Honey Creek, or is that part of section 1?
no, section 2 does include the roundabout at Honey Creek. It's a little faint, I apologize, but you can see where it ties back in with Stones Crossing west of that roundabout at Honey Creek. Kind of a green line, so I apologize for that. Chrissy, next slide, please. And just kind of a recap. So the top graphic is what this project will construct for most of the alignment. It'll be one lane in each direction, although we are building the maximum footprint so that in the future, as traffic levels warrant, the city will have the option to come back in and construct the interior without having to acquire any additional right-of-way. So that bottom graphic there is just for that's the future layout, but at this time we don't have a timeline of when that will occur. That is going to be driven by conditions, traffic conditions in the future.
So in the meantime, what's this interior section going to look like?
It'll be grass areas. There'll be drainage inlets capturing all the runoff. There will be a number of median crossovers and at the intersection areas to allow turns. There's going to be two median crossovers along the I'll call it the Stones Crossing leg just east of the roundabout, the future roundabout at Honey Creek.
Are there going to be curbs on the interior, or just going to be like it is on Whiteland Road?
It'll be like this, just like it is on, similar to what it is on Whiteland Road. You're right. That section does not have curbs. That'll certainly cut down cost for the city in the future to not have to, certainly in the meantime, not have to maintain those curbs. It'll also in the future not have to remove those curbs to construct the interior pavement.
Hey, Daniel, this is Brian.
Yes, go ahead, Brian.
I was just noticing there's quite a lot of residential in this area that we're talking about. I know there's Greenwood Christian Church that's on the right side of the road, and on the left side of the road is Green Christian Academy. I'm assuming notices go out to these folks because this is going to cut off many of them. The only way to get to them is through that road. And so when they begin construction, I'm just trying to make sure that these folks are properly notified. I'm assuming all that's happening, but I'm just trying to get a feel for how that happens communication-wise.
Right. Really, communication will happen with those different entities, whether it's say the Section 3 project that will be occurring or starting later this summer, right. And then certainly with Section 2 during the design phase and any right-of-way acquisition phase. All of the coordination is happening with those entities at that time. So certainly once as we get closer to the construction, yes, there will be more notification sent out for those.
So when do you anticipate? Sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
Go ahead, Kevin. Or Dave, go ahead, yeah.
No, you're fine. Finish your question. I'll remember mine.
No, I was just going to say, do you know if there will be points in time when there'll be a total closure of WORTHSVILLE Road so that these folks can prepare for what's going to happen if that happens?
We're not looking at any long-term closures, but with any construction activity, there's potential for short-term. It could be for anything for brief, maybe a utility crossing, or there's some complex aspect of the project that does require like a short-term 2 or 3 day closure. So I don't want to say that won't happen. There's that potential that it could happen, but right now we're not planning on any long-term closures.
Okay. The only thing I'm bringing it up for is because you've got two schools there. Obviously, GCA is one, and then Greenway Christian has its own. I think they have a K through sixth grade there, but there's going to be a lot of, if you've ever been through that area about 4 o'clock, it gets kind of crazy. And so people are going to need, alternate routes if that ever happens.
No, I agree 100%.
My question was sort of a two-parter. Do you have an anticipated date where you would start land acquisition and then an anticipated actual construction start date for the Section 2?
Okay, for Section 2, the land acquisition has already started. And so every time that for the RDC has approved an additional offer, those are for the land acquisitions along Section 2. If I'm answering your question correctly. Your correct question.
Yes. And then construction.
Right. So the letting is November of this year. So I would anticipate springtime of 2021. And this project will have we are anticipating 2 years, 2 construction seasons for this.
Okay. So, I'm trying to think through my head of some of the land acquisition that we've done since I've been on here, and
Sure.
I guess normally I don't look to see who the homeowner or landowner is, but I got an email the other day from Mr. Justice, and I know when I first ran for the council, I know he was in my district. I'm assuming he's in Mr. Lexi's now, but he had said that he doesn't know what the plan is. He doesn't know what timelines are. So I didn't know if we had purchased some of his land already. I would assume we would have to. Probably he's on the north side of Stones Crossing. It'd be east of Honey Creek.
We can certainly have our consultants check back in with you said Justice.
Justice, yeah.
We can certainly ask our consultants to check in back to provide an update.
Okay. All right. I would appreciate that.
Would his property be listed on those offer sheets that you've given us in the past?
That's correct.
Okay.
All right. That was it for my questions, I think. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments?
This is the first meeting, which means we won't vote on it today, but vote on it next time, or are we voting on it today?
No, that's Mr. Campbell, that's correct. This is the first meeting. And so actually, if I could go to the next slide, please, Chrissy. So we are anticipating, based on with our consultants, that the construction range is estimated between $10 and $11 million. This is going to lead into a construction inspection cost of approximately 1.3. And so our local portion for this project, that's also accounting for funding that we've received from the MPO, federal funding from the MPO. Our local portion for construction costs is anticipated to be $4,326,300. And that does include a 10% contingency on the construction costs. So all I'm talking right there is just local funds for construction, meaning separate from construction inspection. I just wanted to clarify. And then as Campbell mentioned, the actual vote would be at the next month's RDC meeting, and we'll have a resolution prepared for that.
Okay.
So, Chrissy, next slide, please. So what I wanted to do is also just provide you an update. So back in early March, the city, we did publish a request for proposals for construction inspection for this project. They were due last Friday. And we actually received letters of interest, LOIs, from 4 firms. So the next step will be to evaluate those, score those, rank them, see which firm has the best proposal, and then most likely returning in the May RDC with an update, on the selected consultants.
All right.
No action today, just an update. My next item, Chrissy, next slide. This is going to be for Stop 18 Phase 2. We did have a bid opening for this project back on March 12th. We received 2 bids, but in light of a lot of the situation going on economically, financially, and also just coronavirus-wise, but we've reevaluated a number of our project priorities and decided that it is probably better to postpone this until the 2021 season. You may recall the improvements that were going to be involved in this. They're kind of you can see the channelization island coming out of that driveway at the gas station. That island was going to go away. We were going to construct a dedicated eastbound right turn lane to go south on US 31. There were some other aspects of it, but that was the general scope of the project. And so my request for you is to reject all bids for this project. Stop 18 Phase 2.
All right. Is there a motion?
Yeah, make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Campbell, second by Mr. Hoover. Any other discussion? All right, roll call.
Mr. Hoover,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Hopper.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
All bids are rejected. That's unfortunate because that dedicated turn lane to go southbound is desperately needed right there. That light isn't very long as you're headed east and west. And if you get stuck behind everybody who's going straight, and you never get a chance to get over. So
I told Daniel I was going to protest because I live down by there. Protest the cancellation of the project.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, well, we'll just have to be patient a little while longer, right? All right.
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Daniel. Adam, anything, sir?
Yep. And can you all hear me? This is Adam.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks everyone for the time and good afternoon. And if you want some comedic relief on trying to do all these virtual meetings, I'd encourage you to check out this past Saturday Night Live's Zoom call skit. Is worth a good watch. Kind of makes light of what we're all having to deal with. But anyway, I just have a few updates for you all. First is really tied back to your last agenda item. So as Daniel mentioned with Stop 18, unfortunately that was not the only project that was impacted. As you know, we go through a biweekly financial planning and capital review session, and essentially as a result of, it's really a result of cash flow, specifically TIF revenue impacts that are tied back to the governor's executive order. We're anticipating a disruption in the June tax settlement. We are forecasting that certain businesses take advantage of the extension to pay their property taxes, which will ultimately impact the redevelopment collection of those funds. So in light of that, we've had multiple conversations, and the decision was made to just take the most prudent path forward until we get on the other side of that June tax draw. So we've revised our estimates. We were initially assuming 53% of our annual revenue was collected in June. We've lowered that to 40% in June and 13.5% in August, and then the remaining balance to collect in December. So we're preserving our annual target, but we're just changing the nature of how it gets paid out. And that married up with, as you've seen, the fund balances in East Side have drawn down over time as the county line project has switched the balance sheet has switched from cash on hand to marketable land. So we've had to make some adjustments based on that. So approximately $1 out of $5 of projects were pushed to a future year. And for the most part, the redevelopment commission projects, the bond projects, et cetera, were left as a A1 priority. But certainly things that were not immediately time sensitive or didn't have federal or local state grant dollars attributed were items that we looked at just temporarily pausing. Nothing was removed from the plan. At most, it was just delayed in when it would commence. So I just wanted to share that. We don't publicize monthly the full capital plan just because the cost estimates change periodically, and we also don't want to pre-publish before we bid what the internal estimates are. But certainly, if any of you would like to have a copy or would like to talk about any of the changes so that you're aware, please let us know. We're happy to share that information. And then in addition to that, I just wanted to give you a quick update on the reporting and compliance front. We have the 2019 RDC annual report finalized and ready to submit through Gateway. And that has been, a file copy of that has been received to the executive's office as well to comply with that statute. The next items that we'll be working on will come as early as your next meeting, which is the annual determination of excess assessed value. To start thinking about through that, we'll have to make that declaration on record for each of Greenwood's TIFs. And then shortly after that, we'll have all of the annual securities, the EMA debt compliance requirements on any of your outstanding rated debt. So with that, we'll continue to provide the updates, but ultimately, biggest item we had is we wanted to make sure you were up to speed with some of the replanning we had to do on the capital side in light of the change in our cash flow forecast. That's all I have.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Adam. Anybody have any questions for Adam?
Yeah, I'm sorry, David. The only question I had for Adam was based on those estimates that you guys are looking at, does the receipt timing affect our debt service coverage ratios as required by the banks for some of the bonding we've done?
Yes, for sure. And that's why we've looked at our debt coverage is calculated on the TIF collected at the allocation fund level. So it is tied directly to TIF collected. So that is at least our interpretation of it. It's computed on gross revenue as receipted.
Sure. And do you anticipate, Adam, any kind of a violation of that covenant and a notification to the banks about a potential violation?
We do not at this time, but certainly if we miss on the low side, if we come under 40% in June, we certainly will have to reassess that, and it may trigger one of the 10-day, it may be a material event in the 10-day SEC filing requirements as well. So something we're considering. We don't currently expect it to happen, but we definitely have it on our watch list.
Okay. I'm sure the banks will work with us. Go ahead. I interrupted somebody. Sorry.
This is Greg. We also have debt service reserve funds, so we could utilize those and then replenish them as well.
Okay. I'm sure the banks will work with us. I was just trying to anticipate what we would need to trigger to the banks to let them know that. That's the banker coming out at me.
Yep. That's why you're here.
Not
All right.
the only reason, but yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Anything else for Adam?
Thanks, Kevin.
All right. I didn't see the mayor on here, but does anybody from the mayor's staff have anything they want to add, need to add? We'll come back to Sam.
Nope.
Sam, do you have anything? No.
Oh, I'm there. I do not have anything, and Mayor has nothing also.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
All right. Did everybody get a chance to look at the April claims docket? Claims docket is for $1,415,392.56. And I will entertain a motion to approve.
Campbell, make that motion.
Thanks, Mr. Campbell.
Hoover will second.
Thank you, Mr. Hoover. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Hopper,
Aye.
Mr. Hoover.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
All right. Anybody else have anything that's out there in digital land, out on the interwebs? All right. Hearing none, we will stand adjourned at 5:26. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Amanda,
Everybody.
Amanda,
Yes.
before you hang up,
Yes.